Hey there, and welcome back to Parenting Uncovered. We are Dave and Ashley Willis, and we haven't even said this yet, but we are coming to you, if you're watching this on YouTube, we are coming to you live, at least live right now, from our studio in Southlake, Texas, the marriage capital of the world. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because I'm having a delightful pumpkin spice latte, okay, made with oat milk at our XO Press. And I'm telling you guys, you're missing out. If you don't come, watch one of our live recordings or even some of our other podcasters' live recordings and just go in the XO Press Cafe and enjoy your day. If you're in the DFW, that's Dallas-Fort Worth area in Texas, you can come anytime. We have good Wi-Fi. You can get your work done and also see what's happening at XO.
Yeah, listen to live podcast recordings. Have a nice
it's
nice
really
beverage.
good. I'm going to keep on drinking this. But we are talking about something that, man, I know so many of you can relate to, and we certainly can relate to, and that is how to parent a strong-willed or spirited, some people say, child.
Yes, and so I'm going to start with something that's funny.
Okay.
So in Kentucky, where we grew up,
Go Wildcats.
Yeah. An obituary went viral for a man named James Lovelace, who passed away June 14th. And the obituary was written by his, tying into the episode, strong-willed son, right? So he had a couple strong-willed son that wrote his father's obituary.
Okay. I think I've seen this, but refresh my memory.
I just want to read this to you. This is a real obituary. And it's for James Lovelace, written by his son.
Rest in peace, James.
Rest in peace, James.
Yes.
Born and raised in Kentucky in 1963, a state that has been recently leaning toward more liberal values, we might add, Jamie, a divorcee, father, grandfather, and proud owner of a few lots in the trailer park, had enough and up and died on June 14th in order to avoid another presidential stolen election mishap in the near future.
Wow.
As a gluttonous eater of fried foods and snack cakes, as well as the occasional chili cheese dog, James tried in vain to give up the ghost by clogging his arteries and having a stroke in 2015. His twin boys, Rocky and Rodney, had other plans, made him go to the hospital. While waiting in the ER at the hospital, he was heard saying, "Let's make a break for it," only to be heard by one of the hospital staff and forced to go through the procedure. He wasn't too excited, but he went anyway. On many occasions in life, James was seen in his backyard at the trailer park during the early hours of the morning, hammering beers, standing over his country-style ribs, and yelling, "It's got a head like a cat on it," while nearby neighbors would peek out their windows bearing looks of disgust and amazement as the party guests were slurring remarks about needing to speed up his cooking style. "We've been here since 5 o'clock, they'd say. "I got to get to work in the morning." We don't know if he was married, but he was definitely a ladies' man.
Oh my
There was
God.
Kathy, Mary Lou, Tammy, Deborah, Carrie, Tina, etc. "It's the bones," he'd tell us, proudly pointing to his skinny, pasty white legs. "Women love a good shin." We think he might even have some females waiting for him on the other side.
Wow.
Jamie loved his family more than anything else in the world, except ice-cold bush, room temperature bush, T-bone, New York strip, prime ribs, shrimp, swimming, poker, hatchback Mustang, GTs, tank tops, Kentucky men's basketball, and his personal copy of Eddie Murphy's Raw.
That is funny.
He leaves behind his favorite son, Rocky Lovelace of Arizona City, Arizona, his second favorite son, Rodney Lovelace of Science Hill, a younger brother, Joey, an unofficial daughter named Melissa of the trailer park, as well as a pair of old boxer shorts which have Budweiser, King of Rears, printed on the design. He will be moderately missed.
Moderately missed.
Pulaski Funeral Home is honored to assist the family with arrangements.
So Pulaski County.
So this
Shout
is
out to Kentucky.
PulaskiFuneralHome.com. You can see a picture of James and rest in peace, James.
That. We always joke about why people pick the pictures.
Right? Yeah. Get a decent picture of yourself that could be used in the obituary.
The
As a guy that does funerals, I just see the family will pick a terrible photo of you if you don't just say, use this. So
that is hilarious, by the way.
So his two sons got together and wrote an obituary for their dad. His favorite son wrote the obituary. So strong-willed kids grow up and, they'll write your obituary. So you got to keep that in mind.
When you're all your stuff.
They're going to tell all your stuff.
All the skeletons in the closet, all of it. No, I mean, you can tell they truly love their dad, and I mean, that's really sweet. And he's probably, if he could read that, he'd be laughing.
He'd be laughing. That's my boys.
And he'd be like, they even mentioned the boxers. Budweiser. Okay. No, but in all seriousness, I'm so glad we're talking about how to raise strong-willed kids, because this is the episode of many episodes, okay? Because I think we approach this podcast as one, like, what did we wish we could have known, you know? And this is one of those where, man, a lot of the things we're going to share with you, I wish I would have known, you know, back in the day when I was in the thick and when we were in the thick of dealing with strong-willed kids. Because first and foremost, I want to say, like, strong-willed kids, they are a blessing. Like, this is not a curse as it feels as a parent. It feels like, why, oh Lord, thank you for this child, but why did you give me such a strong-willed kid?
Yeah.
Because here's the deal. Strong-willed kids, you know, they're the ones that no matter what you say, a lot of times they'll challenge it, okay? They're usually smart as a whip, and they're thinking like, I have a better idea, okay? And they'll voice it. They're the ones that, you know, usually have a really good sense of humor and will do stuff that they think's funny that is really embarrassing to you as a parent. We've had this many times. You know, they're the ones that usually get a teacher comment that shows the teacher's frustrated. And we're going to share some stories, like, kind of from our own experience. You know, in our family, we have 4 boys, Cooper, Connor, Chandler, Chatham, and there's a 9-year span there. And we have in the
10,
middle.
really? I mean,
it's on, well, 9.5. Yeah,
almost 10.
You're right. And definitely 10 grade-wise, like in school.
Yeah.
But they, you know, we took kind of a breather in between what we refer to as our bigs and our littles. And if you're into kind of the birth order stuff, there's whole books on this. We almost traditionally, if you look at those, and again, this doesn't define anybody because every family can be a little different and every personality can be different, but it's almost like we have 2 firstborns and 2 babies, personality-wise, with those studies they've done on birth order. But and a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times in families, it tends to be a lot of firstborns or ones where there's like a big age gap in between. A lot of times only children, you know, tend to have strong-willed or spirited qualities. And so in our family, our first Cooper and our third Chandler really, you know, both are strong-willed, okay? And I will say, when we first realized this, which was honestly, for Cooper, I'm not even kidding you, like when he was a baby, right, sweetie?
Yeah.
He did this thing where he, you know, Cooper, sweetest baby, slept really well. Like, I want to say, and people with kids who don't sleep well, I feel bad even mentioning this, but honestly, most of our kids slept really well, so we didn't have colic that we were dealing with. Slept really well, pretty easy in a lot of respects, didn't nurse well. We had a lot of problems with, like, the whole nursing thing, which probably is just user error on my part, like understanding it. But I remember when he was probably like 6 months old, he did this thing where he would, if he didn't want something, and once he started talking, he would actually verbalize this because he was an early talker, like he really was. But he would raise his little fist and he would punch the air,
but then he would get scared of his own fist. He would get
scared of his own fist, which was really funny. And then when he was old enough to talk, he'd say, "No, don't like it." And he said this to everything. And he'd punch the air and go, "No, don't like it. No, don't like it." And,
oh man, he was strong-willed.
I mean, he was so strong-willed, and like I remember it was like tightly wound. You know, you could just see it in his little body. And then, you know, we end up in the school years and there was just some working through some of those things where teachers, even who hadn't dealt with strong-willed kids, would misunderstand them. I think a lot of people, if they are not well-versed in the strong-willed child, and then it can feel like, why will this kid not sit on his square? Why won't she raise her hand? Why is she talking all the time? That was me. Yeah. Like, I got talking I was a strong-willed child. My mom said, literally for years, I got talking marked on my report card. I'd get moved to a seat by myself, you know? And again, I wasn't trying to be like rude. I was just like, I have things to say, you know? I mean, like, as a strong-willed kid, you're like, I want to be known. I have things to say. And so anyway, I remember, you know, with Cooper, we definitely had some things we were working through. He ended up having some intestinal issues, which a lot of kids do. And this was like about 4 years old, and that were pretty critical. I mean, like ending up in the ER sometimes, you know? And I remember because he is just so intelligent and very verbal, always has been, he could really articulate his feelings and his wants and desires. And I remember like having, you know, he needed certain medicine and there were certain procedures we had to do to help get him through this like intestinal difficulty. And I remember literally like having these battles with him. Like he would go to battle and resist everything I was trying to do with him and everything you were trying to do with him. Because that will, he didn't understand what he needed. And that will was so strong. And it was hard, right, sweetie? I mean, those were some really hard years.
They really were.
Yeah.
I mean, they were really hard years, and it was discouraging as a parent.
And embarrassing. Like,
embarrassing, right? Yeah.
All out like
Oh gosh, yeah.
tantrums. Just
And it's hard to not take it personally as a parent. Like, you see,
especially with your first child.
with your first one, you see somebody. We all play the comparison game, which we should not, because every one of us is unique by God's
Very
design.
much.
But you look at your friends who have this kind of docile, well-behaved, calm calm-natured kid, and you look at your child who's very spirited, very strong-willed,
challenging you on everything,
and you think, my gosh, and then whether they mean to or not, the parents with the really easy-natured kid tend to be judgy. They think, especially with the first kid, without the experience of knowing each kid's so different, that kid is calm because they're somehow superior parents.
I've got this.
Oh, I would nip that in the bud right away. And then all of a sudden, like we have, I won't name names. So there's a young couple in our church we love dearly. They're good friends of ours, and we had kids long before they did.
Yeah.
And the wife would see our kids coming in when they were young and spirited.
Well, and this is what she would say, and I know she did not mean, like, I don't think she was trying to hurt her feelings.
No,
or anything,
she was very young at the time.
But she would say, "Oh, here come the Willis boys.
Oh, wow, here they
are. Everybody knows
the freak shows in town," and admitted, and
she
it was
didn't say the freak shows in town.
No, but
you could hear it.
You could hear it, yeah, in her expression, and it was obvious from her expression and tone, and kind of some of the sarcastic remarks that it was clear that she was just judging us, basically, as
I found out later
family.
she was. Like,
it wasn't a mystery. But
I mean, it's fine.
But
we're
now,
all the perfect parent before
we're all
we have
imperfect.
kids.
But now we're all the perfect parent before kids.
Like I was.
But now she's got 3 very spirited boys, and they're the ones coming into church.
They're
just precious and sweet and wild. But they're
just,
boys,
just full of spirit,
like ours were, and I love it. I love it.
And there's a lot of spiritual girls out there too.
They're the ones that look worn out now. Those parents look worn out, and we've kind of like our kids have all mellowed out, and so.
It's just
she's actually apologized to us. She's like, listen, I was wrong. Like, parenthood has humbled me. I used to have these just...
It humbles all of us.
Judgy thoughts. And so anyway, we love them. They're awesome.
Well, I had one friend of mine, dear friend. She's become one of my very best friends. I remember back when I first got to know her, I think we just had the 2 boys. And she had 2 girls around the same age, and we were part of a dance group at church, and so we got to be around each other a lot, and our kids were around each other a lot. And I remember her being like, just kind of looking at me like, why can't you get your boys like handled, And they weren't doing anything bad or rude, but just being more spirited, wouldn't really sit still.
Yeah.
Because, Cooper's strong-willed and he'd have his way he wanted to do things. And then again, I've shared on this podcast before, Connor wasn't strong-willed, but had ADHD. So he had focus
he was
issues.
wild. He's sweet-natured, all that. But
he's chill and as far as being easygoing. But he was, especially in the younger years,
bouncing off the walls, climbing everything.
I mean, literally bouncing off the walls. And I remember my friend, later on, we ended up having our third children together at the same time. I mean, I threw her a baby shower and everything. And I remember her little boy, so she had the 2 girls and a boy. And I remember in the early years, like when her little boy kind of found his voice, he is extremely strong-willed, extremely intelligent. In the early years, gave them a run for their money. I mean, there's all kinds of stories. Precious kid, but one of the most strong-willed kids. I mean, that I think I've encountered, and she's like certainly that she's encountered. And she told me, she said, Ashley, I'm going to be honest. I used to think that you guys just couldn't get it together. She said, I love you guys. I've always admired you guys, but when your kids were smaller, I literally thought, they just don't know how to get control of their kids. And she said, but now, she goes, I have a strong-willed kid, and I'm like, I don't know what to do, and he does these things, and she's like, I don't know what I was thinking. She goes, I'm so sorry I was judging you all. And I'm like, listen, we just don't know. We don't know what it's like till we're there. We just don't know. And I will say that her child now, you talked about mellowing out. He's a 6th grader, and it's being strong-willed, especially in those early years and maybe again in the teenage years. Really, really hard season for parents. But in the long run, if we steer it towards the good things, strong-willed people can do incredible things. And it will serve you well in life.
World leaders.
Yes.
Are people that started out as strong-willed kids. So it's a superpower if you channel it.
Yes.
But how do you channel it? We want to give you some real practical stuff. Something that helped with our third, who was...
Well, let's talk about Chandler.
Chandler, our third.
More fresh on the brain anyway.
Awesome. Such a bright kid. I mean, he is now like a Boy Scout. He's working to be an Eagle Scout. Just a great kid all the way around. But in the early years, very strong-willed. very hard to
maybe
rein
even
in.
more than Cooper.
Maybe the hardest
I
one.
would think, yeah.
And we discovered something called occupational therapy, which I didn't know what that was at the time, but it was a life changer because Cooper went through it as well, right?
Well, can I give a little bit of background to this? So here's why we ended up in OT, is what they refer to it. So Chandler, in preschool in particular, we knew he was strong-willed, right, sweetie? I mean, this wasn't like a shocker to us, but we ended up putting him in this preschool that all of our kids had gone through. We knew everybody there, and he gets a teacher that none of our kids had had. And I think like probably the 5th week of school, I go to pick him up in the car line, and the teacher literally like puts him in his car seat, because they're 4 years old, so they're in like the car seat, and she almost like slams him down in the car seat. Like there was a frustration with how she put him in the car seat. And see, normally it wasn't his teacher who put him in his car seat, so that's why I hadn't seen this before, and I hadn't had any, like she had sent no notes home. And they talk about behavior stuff. Like I had no inclination that he wasn't doing well. Like there was this was very concerning to me. So anyway, and I look at her and I go, oh, I said, rough day. And she goes, oh, I don't even know where to begin. And I was like, what? And I paused for a moment because I'm like, I need to know what's going on. And she's like, I don't even know where to start. And so I was like, okay, we need to have a conference. So we end up scheduling a conference, and I sit down with her, and this is a teacher. She's taught a long time. She herself had homeschooled 2 boys, and had this whole class of kids and stuff. And she said, listen, I have been teaching a long time. I've raised boys myself. But she said, Chandler basically is like no one I've ever taught. I'm out of my league with him. I don't understand his love language. She used that. She said, I try to understand my students' love language. I don't understand his. And honestly, I just don't get this kid. Like, and what I heard as a mom is like, I don't like your kid. And I'll be honest with you, she didn't. Like, and I've been a teacher, you guys, for years. And I am very reluctant to put that label on a teacher or on anybody. I want to be like, no, it's not about that. But I think Chandler had given her such a hard time that she didn't like him. I mean, and Chandler being a very intelligent, kid.
He picked up on it. He perceived it. She doesn't like me.
And she did this chart system. And this is what you need to understand about strong-willed kids too. It's not that they don't want to make, most kids aren't, with whatever they're dealing with, aren't like, I'm just going to make everybody's life miserable. I'm going to make a scene. I'm going to be bad. I don't think it's like that. I think a lot of times it's, I want to be seen. I want to be loved. I want to be noticed, And they had this chart system where they would, get like merits and demerits based on behavior. And Chandler, who is just wired this way, Cooper was very similar. He's an achiever, wants to do well, great, amazing kid, wants to rise to the level and picks up on this. And so Chandler was no different. And anyway, he came home and he was like, Mom, he goes, no matter what I do, I can't move up the chart. And then at the end of the school day, and this is the big mistake here that at the time was made in this class, he said at the end of the school day, they line up the kids based on where they are on the chart. And he said, I'm always the last kid.
Oh, yeah.
And he said,
that's demoralizing for a 4-year-old. it just seems
he
cruel.
Would cry about it because he's like, I'm trying. He goes, she never notices the good that I'm doing.
She only sees the bad.
She only sees the bad. And so anyway, after that meeting, we met also with the principal of the school, and she was like, listen, we love Chandler. We've had him before. He was in like their 2-year-old program and their 3-year-old program. And she's like, we know he's strong-willed. And she's like, let's just keep an eye on this. And just to do our due diligence, we made it an appointment with the doctor, right, sweetie?
Yes, and it was the doctor that suggested occupational therapy, and we didn't know what that was. We're thinking like it just sounds like some extreme thing, like, oh my gosh, what occupational therapy? Right. What is that? But really, it's a system and a program. It's kind of a combination of coaching, counseling, and
helping
kids get control of tasks and motor skills and behavioral issues. Yeah. In a very structured way. And it was a game changer for him. It was difficult for him at first, but he quickly adapted, and we saw the change almost immediately. And it was an encouraging process for him because he realized, okay, I have control over my reactions. Yep. And when I can control my reactions, good things happen. So occupational therapy is something to look into if you've got a strong-willed kid.
You want a behavioral specialist.
Yeah, behavioral specialist. And so the group of ladies that worked with him there, it was such a gift. So why we do this podcast really is to just let you know about tools that you might not have known about and to give you encouragement on the journey, because guys, parenthood's difficult, and it's the most important job any of us will ever have. And so we just want to let you know there are resources out there, and if you've got a really strong-willed kid, especially one that's really young, something like occupational therapy could be a game changer. And just know that there are resources out there.
There are, and you mentioned earlier that Cooper went. So later on, I don't even remember what age it was, maybe in the early middle school, since we learned about occupational therapy and how helpful it was to Chandler, there were some things going on with Cooper that we were like, you know what, let's just have him evaluated and see if this might help him. And it did. Like, they worked on some different things with Cooper. He wasn't having like behavioral issues.
And he was older. So like Chandler was 4 when Cooper went, he was,
I think 6th grade maybe.
Yeah.
And he was willing to go. And there was, we come to find out there were things that would irritate Cooper. We could do a whole other podcast on this, but Cooper, now this is more kind of diagnosed. I think he had some sensory issues that frustrated him we did not know about. And the occupational therapist really taught us about this. And, I will say this, now that Cooper's 18, he's at the University of Georgia. So he's gone through middle school and high school and now is a college student. His being strong-willed has served him well. And I feel like God has helped Cooper to move this in the right direction. Cooper, being an achiever, has that strong will to keep going after that goal. And Cooper, he's academically very driven, and so he really was able to achieve the things that he wanted to achieve and get into his top school. Made really good grades, and he's been able, to have leadership roles in different capacities over the years. And I feel like it's given him a confidence in a lot of aspects of his life that have served him well.
Yeah.
And so
it's a superpower.
It's a superpower. And same with Chandler. Like, I'm seeing now scouting is really catering to that strong will, because you have to be very self-motivated.
Yeah, you got to be driven.
Yes,
and it's channeled in the right structure.
It is.
And he's thriving in it. And so you got to put your kids in a place, whatever their personality, where they can thrive. I think it was Albert Einstein who said every child is a genius at something.
Yes,
but
I truly
if
believe
a
that.
fish thinks that its job is to climb a tree, it'll go its whole life thinking it's stupid.
Right.
Because a fish is a genius at swimming. So find what your child thrives in. Find the environment where they thrive, and then support them there. Don't try to squeeze them into the mold of just like, well, everybody in our family does this or does that.
Right.
Well, maybe one of your kids isn't wired for that, and that's okay. And don't make them feel like a failure because they don't. But help them just be at their best. And this has been a great conversation. Hey, we end every episode with my favorite part of the show, a fascinating fact from Ashley, a dad joke from Dave. And sweetie, you want to go first?
You go first.
All right. Do you know how a penguin builds his house in the snow?
I do not.
Igloos it.
Igloos it.
Igloos it. Igloos it.
Oh my goodness.
Igloo.
That's cute.
I think I mispronounced
Igloos it. Yes.
Anyway.
I love it. Well, today I'm going to talk about how bug moms serve snacks too, because moms were known for getting some snacks together and having snacks on the go, having snacks after school, all the things, in sports. And this is again from SmithsonianMag.com. It says this: mammals are perhaps the most involved animal moms, yet a small but distinguished number of creepy crawlies are also doting mothers. Mommy Daddy Longlegs, who I love Mommy Daddy Longlegs, they're great, tote their spiderlings for a week after they are born. They tote them around. And one type of earwig mom gives her all. Her hatched, this is crazy, okay? Her hatched, and this is where this takes a turn. Her little hatchlings, okay, her hatched offspring, after she gives birth, completely consume their mother. They eat her, okay? And it's a chilling process called how do I say this?
We get it. It's a thing. They eat.
Matriphagy.
Okay.
But this is how they do it. So earwigs, she gives birth, she's given life to them, and then she's their first snack. Yeah.
Isn't that like parenthood though? You give life to the children, and then they just try to suck the life out of you.
No, but I'm like, you're looking at me like, Ashley, that's so weird. But I'm telling you,
it is fascinating.
She literally
give all for your kids.
She gave her all.
Yeah. Well,
No, you didn't know it was going to go there, did you?
I did not. That took a turn.
He's speechless. He's speechless.
And on that note, hey guys, thanks for tuning in. I thought I wanted a snack, but now I'm not hungry.
You're like, this sounded fun, but it's not.
We appreciate y'all so much. Reach out to us on Instagram. Let us know what's happening. Send us ideas for shows, fascinating facts, dad jokes, whatever you got. You can find us at Dave and Ashley Willis on Instagram and our ministry's website, xomarriage.com. A bunch of free resources for you there as well. God bless, guys. We'll see you next time.